Bruce Lee was fighting when Joe Louis, a karate expert, swore he was deadlier, and then Bruce Lee was fighting when Joe Louis, karate expert, vowed to be more deadly, and the war began. The Jun Fan Gung Fu Institute gym in Los Angeles was buzzing with the sound of punches in the air, screams of students, and the rhythmic thud of feet on the mat. Bruce Lee, with his black kimono fitted to his slender body, demonstrated a chi-saw sequence to a group of advanced students. His movements were fluid like water, but carried the precision of a sharp blade. Among the observers, however, a tall man, with broad shoulders and a defiant expression, crossed his arms and let out a short laugh. Water? It looks more like a puddle. Joe Louis's voice echoed through the room, full of disdain. In karate, we don't play dance. We break. Bruce stopped mid-motion, his muscles tensing for a second before relaxing. He turned slowly, his dark eyes fixed on Louis. There was no anger on his face, just a cold curiosity, like a scientist analyzing a specimen. You speak as if karate were the only art that knows strength, said Bruce, his voice calm. But unchecked force is just violence. And violence. He stepped forward, fingers slightly flexed. It is the refuge of the weak. Louis didn't back down. On the contrary, he advanced until he was less than a meter away from Bruce, his chest puffed out. So show me how you control for a real punch. Or does the great Bruce Lee only know how to teach theory? The challenge hung in the air like an unsheathed blade. The students instinctively moved away, forming a circle around the two. Bruce didn't respond right away. Instead, he took off his kimono, leaving him in just a white t-shirt and sweatpants. His muscles, defined like steel cords, glistened in the gym light. Okay, he said finally. But not here. And not now. Louis frowned. Are you afraid of getting your sacred mat dirty? Bruce smiled, a flash of white teeth. No. I'm afraid you'll mistake a lesson for a humiliation. And humiliation. He paused, his eyes shining. It's something I don't forgive. The challenge accepted. 3 days later, in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Chinatown, the two met. There was no audience, just a few trusted friends on each side. Chuck Norris, Bruce's student, and Mike Stone, Louis' training partner, watched in silence. The concrete floor was marked with tape, delimiting an improvised ring. There were no rules. There were no judges. Just two men in the pride of their arts. Louis attacked first. His style was explosive, typical of the full-contact karate he helped popularize. A front kick straight to Bruce's chest, followed by a sequence of quick punches like machine guns. Bruce dodged the kick with a lateral movement, deflecting Louis's leg with a precise pack. The punches grazed his face, but he counterattacked with a finger jab that hit Louis just below the eye, making him recoil with a grunt. Is that all? Louis spat blood onto the ground. Your street tricks don't work on me. Bruce didn't respond. Instead, he adopted a lower stance, his fists shielding his face, his knees slightly bent. Louis advanced again, this time with a high roundhouse kick, aiming for the head. Bruce blocked with his forearm, but the force of the blow made him take a step back. Louis smiled confidently. Now you will see what real power is. He attacked with a combination of punches and kicks, each blow loaded with brute force. Bruce defended himself, but for the first time, he seemed overwhelmed. A punch from Louis connected with his abdomen, bending him slightly. Another kick hit him in the thigh, making him stagger. Bruce's students exchanged nervous glances. Then, in an instant, the tide turned. Louis set up a side kick, twisting his body to gain momentum. Bruce, however, anticipated the move. Instead of blocking, he charged inside the shot, grabbing Louis's leg with both hands. With a quick movement, he twisted his opponent's hip and knocked him to the ground with a thud. Before Louis could react, Bruce was on top of him, one knee pressing into his chest, a finger jab hovering inches from his throat. Strength is useful, said Bruce, his voice still calm. But without technique, without adaptation, you're just a blind bull in a china shop. Lewis tried to get up, but Bruce put more pressure on his knee. Enough. You've already proven your point. I'm not done, Lewis growled, shoving Bruce away. If you want to teach me a lesson, do it right. Bruce backed away, but not out of fear. There was something new in his eyes, not anger, but cold determination. Then let's finish this. The final lesson. This time, it was Bruce who attacked. His style has completely changed. No longer the fluidity of Wing Chun or the elegance of Jun Fan Gung Fu. Now his movements were brutal, direct, almost animalistic. A short punch connected with Lewis's liver, knocking his breath away. An elbow strike hit him in the shoulder, making him scream. Bruce wasn't joking anymore. Lewis tried to fight back, but each blow was blocked or parried with ruthless efficiency. Bruce used his opponent's own weight against him, redirecting his strength to knock him off balance. In less than a minute, Lewis was on the ground again, his face bloodied, his breathing labored. Stop. Lewis coughed, spitting out more blood. I understand. Bruce stopped, but didn't move away. Understood what? That you're better. At least, at what you do. Bruce reached out and helped Lewis up. It's not a question of being better. It's a question of understanding that no art is complete on its own. He wiped the blood from Lewis' lip with his thumb, like a doctor examining a patient. Karate has strength. Wing Chun has precision. Boxing has rhythm. Jeet Kune Do. He smiled. It's the art of taking what works and discarding the rest. Lewis wiped his face with the back of his hand, looking at Bruce with a mixture of respect and frustration. So that's it? You're going to give me a speech on martial philosophy? Bruce laughed, a genuine sound. No. I'll invite you to coffee. And maybe, if you stop being stubborn, I'll teach you how to knock it knocked down in 2 minutes. Lewis hesitated, but then nodded. Fine. But only if you promise not to make me dance like one of your students. Bruce gave him a friendly slap on the shoulder. No dancing. Just fighting. And maybe, a little humility. Epilogue, the beginning of a rivalry and a friendship. In the following years, Bruce Lee and Joe Louis became central figures in the martial arts revolution in the United States. Louis, inspired by the humiliation in the warehouse, refined his karate, incorporating elements of Jeet Kune Do and becoming one of the pioneers of modern full-contact karate. Bruce, in turn, saw in Louis a mirror of himself, a fighter who, despite his pride, had a thirst for improvement. They never fought again. But, in competitions, training and even in films, their paths crossed countless times. Louis became one of the first to popularize American kickboxing, while Bruce revolutionized action cinema with the Chinese Dragon. In interviews, when asked about their confrontation, they both smiled. He beat me up, Louis admitted. But I learned more that day than I did in 10 years of karate. Bruce, in turn, just said Joe was strong. But strength without wisdom is like a tiger without claws. And I. He paused, his eyes shining. I've always had claws. And so, between punches and philosophies, one of the most respectful rivalries in the history of martial arts was born, one that, in the end, wasn't about who was the best, but who was willing to learn. The last meeting. Years passed. Bruce Lee had already become a global icon, his legend growing even after his untimely death in 1973. Joe Louis, in turn, had cemented himself as a kickboxing legend, world champion and pioneer of a sport that now attracted huge crowds. But, amid the fame and titles, something united them beyond martial arts, mutual respect, forged in that ring in Long Beach. It was in 1978, at a charity event in Los Angeles, that their paths crossed for the last time. Louis, now 34, was still fighting professionally, but he was already feeling the weight of the years. Bruce, if he were alive, would be 40. But his absence was a shadow that hung over all martial arts practitioners. The event brought together masters of different styles to raise funds for a martial arts school for needy children. Lewis was asked to give a kickboxing demonstration, and as he took to the stage, he couldn't help but smile when he saw a photo of Bruce projected on a screen in the background. It was an old image of him in the Chinese dragon, with that penetrating gaze and his finger pointing up. "I always said he beat me up," Lewis began, his voice hoarse from age and fighting. "But the truth is that he gave me much more than that. He taught me that a punch is not just strength. It's precision. It's timing. It's understanding that, sometimes, you don't need to hit the enemy, you just need to make them miss." The audience laughed, but there was something solemn about Lewis' words. He looked at Bruce's photo, as if waiting for an answer. "And I think he learned from me too. Because at the end of the day, even a tiger needs someone to remind him that he's not invincible." That night, Lewis fought a promising young kickboxer, a 22-year-old boy full of fire. And, for the first time in years, it was not technique that guided him, but philosophy. He didn't try to crush his opponent with brute force. Instead, he studied his movements, anticipated his mistakes, and, when the right moment arrived, landed a roundhouse kick that knocked his opponent down without hurting him. The audience applauded, but Lewis barely heard it. He was looking at Bruce's photo again, as if he had finally understood something he had spent decades trying to decipher. The legacy. In the following years, Lewis retired from competition and devoted himself to teaching. He founded his own academy, where he not only taught punches and kicks, but the art of learning. And in every class, in every demonstration, he told the story of that day in Long Beach. "Bruce Lee beat me because he knew something I didn't yet understand, that fighting isn't about winning. It's about growing. And sometimes losing is the best way to do that." He never saw Bruce again. But in a sense, he never stopped seeing it. Because, in the end, true rivalries are not about who wins. They are about who becomes better. And, in that ring in 1967, they had both won.